There's purpose in the pain. God uses everything. There is purpose in your pain. And what I'd like to do is talk about pain and suffering and give a few examples, and hopefully this will minister to you today. And this life is full of pain and suffering. Pain that is physical, pain that is emotional, psychological, spiritual. It's impossible to get through this life and not experience pain. And mostly I'm talking about the emotional and the spiritual pain that people go through in this life. And this is not to make light of any of you right now, of if you're going through intense grief or pain of any kind, or a loss, a betrayal, anything that has brought suffering and misery and angst and turmoil. This is not to speak lightly of that. This is to help you through that. And I always pray that God will minister to you, that you will be surrounded by people that will come alongside of you and help you, and that they will be good as they pray for you, that they will not be like Job's friends who come up with all these fancy ideas about your pain must be because you brought sin. And sometimes we do bring pain and suffering on ourselves. And I'm not so much talking about that, but even those types of pain and suffering that we bring on, God uses it. He uses it for His purpose. We don't serve a God. We don't have a God who is incompetent, who is out of control, who doesn't move everything in this life, including your personal situation, according to His plan. That's just who He is. And He is a God of love. And He is a good God. So this is not to take away the misery and the hurt that you experience today. Basically, what I'm talking about is there is a perspective that we need. And that perspective is that God allows the things that happen and that there is purpose in everything. God is a God of plan and purpose and intentional. You study the Job. Many people have looked at Job and all that man went through, okay? And that he lost his family. He lost his health. He lost his riches. And this wasn't a man who was innocent. This was a man who didn't do anything. And yet what happened there is that God used him in the Bible for us, and used him for us to see how God can move in a life. And the things that we think are the reasons for things are not always the reasons. Everybody had their idea why Job suffered, but there were totally different reasons. Read the book of Job. We should all read the book of Job several times in our life. And look at Joseph. Joseph, okay? Benjamin and Joseph, two sons of the patriarch Jacob, who would become Israel, right? Joseph, Psalm 105:19, until the time that his word came to pass, the word of the Lord tested him. He's talking about Joseph here. And you remember Joseph in Genesis 50:20? But as for you, you meant evil against me, but God meant it for good, in order to bring it about, as it is this day, to save many people alive. We know that Joseph was betrayed by his brothers, sold to slavery, eventually went to Egypt, was used by God in Egypt, that when that drought came and people were starving and dying of thirst and hunger, crops, animals, everything like that, that Joseph was positioned over there in Egypt, and his whole nation, the nation of Israel, those 70 some people that came, Jacob and the whole family, were settled in Egypt because Joseph had the things they needed that saved their lives. God used all that. Now, did that have to come down like that? Just the way Jacob, did he have to deceive his brother Esau that way? Did they have to do those malicious things to Joseph? They didn't have to. It was God's plan anyway to use Joseph. It was God's plan anyway to use Jacob to be the one that would be the younger would rule the older, or the older would serve the younger. We're talking about Esau, right? These were God's plans. God has plans, right? God has plans in your life. And sometimes we run ahead of God and we force things, or people do evil things against us that they shouldn't have done. God intends for things to be a certain way. How they get there, there's a lot of this free will. It's not so free because God laid his life down for us to have the gift, but there is this decision making, right? So back to, and then there's Jesus. Okay, let's look at Jesus. In Hebrews 5:8, though he was a son, yet he learned obedience by the things which he suffered. Yes, talking about Jesus, talking about the cross, talking about his obedience. Now that was a plan. That was going to happen. Jesus knew that Adam would fail. God knew that Adam would fail. So Jesus came into the world and finished his work, the saving of us who would believe on him, right? So purpose in that pain, purpose in Joseph's pain, purpose. 1 Peter 1:7, us, okay, talking about us, that the genuineness of your faith, being much more precious than gold, that perishes, though it is tested by fire, may be found to praise, honor, and glory at the revelation of Jesus Christ. So, what we're talking about here is there is purpose in your pain. There's purpose in my pain. There is purpose in this life. So, and that's not to explain away the hardship that you're going through right now. No, that is to encourage you to continue to endure, to continue to persist, to continue to believe that God is a loving God, and he is not a God to abandon you. He is not a God to forsake you. He is not a God that is evil. He is not a God that would lie. He is a God who is good and a God who is full of purpose. And so there is a reason you're going through what you're going through right now. Even though it did not have to come about the way that it is, God is using everything. And I believe this. I believe this for you. I believe it for me. And so we have to hold fast to what we know, and that we love a God who loves us and is purposeful. So, brother and sister, brothers and sisters, there's purpose in the pain that we go through in this life. And I just pray that knowing that, even though it hurts and we have to endure, it brings more than consolation and comfort. It brings meaning. And though we don't know the purpose and we don't know the things of God and what he's doing, it doesn't matter, because he still is, and he is a God of purpose. God bless you today. God bless you.